Right.
Okay.
I wanted the WebOS one, this one link, which I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, I have not been keeping up. My official stance on WebOS is I am waiting probably till Christmas next year because it's being open source, but it's not going to be early enough for us to really get a wave of decent devices this year. We're going to expect to see them or signs of them at CES, and I forget what the tablet slate show is. That's just after. I think it's just after CES. It's like the next month. Next year, and then those will start coming out summer, December next year. So, why in theory WebOS is an offering right now, in practicality, what you're going to be dealing with isn't on the market yet, and I'm waiting my final judgment to see that. I have hopes, but I'm going to see what comes out. I'm hoping WebOS can avoid the run of cheapy systems Android had to deal with, where everybody and their dog was going, "Oh, I'll just stuff WebOS on something."
Right. Well, WebOS has to have a gesture bar, so unless they modify, so it kind of has some hardware demands for it. But what I'm looking at in front of me is from The Verge, and it's titled "Android Frustrations from a Former WebOS User." And I really enjoyed this article.
I'll bite my tongue for a moment.
Because I've owned an HTC Evo and the other one from T-Mobile, so 2 Android devices, and I've owned 2 WebOS devices. I still own a WebOS 2, being a pre-2 device, and I shared some what this guy's talking about, and we won't go really deep into the article, but some of the headlines are like notifications can't be individually dismissed. So this is something you're used to on WebOS. And multitasking menu doesn't show running apps, which WebOS you're used to. And unfortunately, Android is going the way of iOS in thinking that, actually in confusing users. I won't even go there anymore saying, oh, it's meant to be simple and for people to understand. No, it's actually caused even more confusion. It's going and clicking the double dock in iOS and being able to kill it. Even Apple pundits are like, it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. Which, to me, a massive fail for Apple. If the pundits even have to come out and say something and say, well, it's in other words, they're going against the UI implementation of what Apple already did. Already puts the...
Well, and honestly, one of the ways in which I think Google fucked up big time was they've implemented this quote-unquote standard UI thing, which I think is bullshit. Which is to say, you have to use Google's UI if you want to use the Android store. Now, there's nothing to stop the end user from rooting and so on and changing things and doing other stuff. But honestly, I think that's a major fail, because one of the great things Android had going for it was if Google fucked up the UI, some third party could come along and fix it, and the consumer could go, wow, this is so much better and intuitive, and Google could learn, and then in the next version of Android, copy them. As opposed to prevent innovation, lock it out. It's a very Apple-ish move they've done there. It's one of the reasons I'm having hopes for WebOS, because you need that independent development going on, even if it's going to only live for a cycle, to go, well, I think there's a better way, and we'll let the market decide.
Right. The next one, they go into email. Now, I've had other colleagues bitch about Android's email. And I haven't seen Ice Cream Sandwich's email, but I hear people complaining about it. Messaging app is lacking. And then the other titles are widgets are mostly a gimmick. And the thing of it is, the reason why WebOS cards themselves can become widgets, and Android makes a play in saying there's a class of widgets and then there's like this app, because everything on WebOS is like the card, and the application goes in it, whatever, and therefore it has equal power among the operating system, and not just some little happy corner in the room and then another happy corner for something else in the system. So I think that's a lot where they're coming from in terms of gimmicking. possible. Well, see, that's all, again, goes to the card system. Is that everything can be manipulated and moved and wherever you want and stacked.
That's actually not true. You do it differently in Android. In Android, you have a desktop. And you have almost no... Basically, you put your common applications that you're going to mess with all the time on the desktop, sorted by screens, by folders, by sign. You can order applications however the devil you want. Subsort, reorder, so on and so forth. You just do it differently.
There's talking about mostly, see, Gingerbread, you know, this user obviously hasn't experienced iPhone Sam, so I don't know if they've implemented it though, but what their opinion is that the implementation, while you can, in their opinion, is poorer versus the way you can do it in WebOS, is what they're... Because if you read it, it's like, why must I remove an app, find it, okay, just why must I remove an app, find it again in the app drawer, and then bring it back to the page after moving my other apps around with the gap left behind? Why do folders stay open after making my selection? So, you know, he has, basically, it's because he's...
you know, I have... okay, I know you love WebOS and you agree with them, but when I read articles like this, I think about all those Apple fanboys complaining about a platform and going, well, the biggest problem with it is it doesn't work like my Apple platform. Not that it doesn't do it, that it doesn't do it identically. And that's...
Well, it doesn't have to be about identical. You can... And WebOS I love because I'm looking at it from a productivity point. See, the thing of it is like, if I have something set up, and I've owned Android, and it is not the quickest. That's the reason why I left it. And getting things done takes extra steps on the system. Or my alternative is, well, just install another UI, which is like a layer, a middleman layer that I find runs slower than the native. So it becomes very frustrating on the Android devices that I've owned as well, and it's not about what usually Apple fanboys argue about, like, oh, look at the Retina display, and really, to me, which is more useless stuff, versus productivity and ripping through task switching apps rapidly and actually killing apps rapidly, versus going through other steps or having a task killer and click over here, go here, then you can select your damn list and all that stuff. On WebOS, it's all there, like an expose thing, and go, all those are killed. You know, if you're really into productivity and wanting to do something, it's there to do it. I'm not making like a fluffy play of bubblegum and saying, oh, it doesn't have aluminum, or the glass is not as beautiful, or...
Well, but it's missing a lot of applications you need to really do that productivity. Honestly, at this stage, I think all the platforms suck at that. Some of them have more potential than others, but at this stage, they all suck.
WebOS is not populated with all the apps that every user might like. That's a very true thing. And
I get what you're talking. While we're on this topic of UI and third-party stuff, have you looked at the full-screen launcher that IsoDroid makes?
No.
Go to IsoDroid.com real quick.
IsoDroid?
Yeah, ISO.
Uh-huh.
Click on Applications.
Okay.
Scroll down a little bit, you'll see something called Full Screen Launcher Pro.
Yeah, I see it. It's the second option. These are UI implementations, and how fast does this work?
This one right now, because as a developer you'll have an appreciation for how much resources this would actually use. It only works on the top end phones, and even then it's a little sluggish. But play this video and show the types of things it does, and just kind of, you can kind of, it basically augments the desktop very well.
I will look at it then. All right.
Yeah, no, I see this type of innovation ultimately working its way in, and this is one of the reasons I have hopes for WebOS, because it's going to be open. If you get the right devices out there, this type of innovation that Android is shunning, if WebOS is smart and embraces it, will be good.
We'll see. WebOS will not abandon its card system, but I'll have to see what that video is. I mean, that's its strength. Now, this WebOS user gives 2 great points, which I have to totally agree with. Well, one, we already just covered the app selection in Android, but the biggest thing is that Android has tremendously awesome hardware. More so than, in my opinion, than Apple. And WebOS has always been plagued by very poor hardware.
Oh no, that's why I'm waiting to see what devices come out, because WebOS will not be able to compete if it's stuck on cheapy devices.
So I thought that was fun. All right, let's see. Where's another quick one?
Quickies.
Right, now I guess we're just gonna have to go straight into Apple.
Okay, everybody, hang on a minute. I'm going to put a pause in because I have a feeling this is going to be an hour.
All right, and you know what? If you're going to pause it, I will pause the podcast. Just pause.
Okay.